True or false? All individuals select the same information to focus their attention. False. We are all individuals, and we as humans only grab a small amount of information. We have selective attention, and sure enough, it goes back to our identity. Perception of self and others. Perception. So, life, once again, it ain't all about you. Perception, it ain't all about you. Just kidding. It's still all about you. Everything goes back to who you are and how you thus perceive the world. So when you look at this photo, what do you see? Is this person angry? Is this person sad? Is this person happy? Are they scared? Or maybe you're not even looking at the actual person in the photo, but what's behind the person. In reality, by the way, I took this photo, and it's a really poorly timed and really poorly shot photo of two of my friends at a location in San Diego. So it's neither a person who's scared, nor angry, nor happy. It's just a really poorly timed photo. So what is perception? According to Communicate 15th edition, on page 24, is the process of selectively attending and assigning meaning to information. It is what you're perceiving and then assigning it meaning. 3 parts to perception. There's 3 things that our brain goes through when it comes to perception: selection, organization, and interpretation. First, of course, we're going to discuss selection. So there's different influences on the information we select. So earlier you saw a photograph of, if you can remember, people standing around and they're wearing life jackets. Perhaps they're receiving instruction on how to use those life jackets, or perhaps there's actually a drill going on, or perhaps they actually have to exit that location because there's some type of possible danger. When you looked at that photo, there could have been several different things you noticed. You could have noticed the people in the crowd. You could have noticed the people delivering the information regarding the life jackets. But those are the things that influence the information and why and how we select it. We look at the features of the person, the group, the situation. Maybe on the first day of class, you completely noticed my jewelry. Maybe you noticed the bookcase behind me. Maybe you noticed how many other people were in the class. We have individual goals as well. So if you're enrolled in a class and your goal is to be a more effective communicator, that's the kind of information that you're going to start pulling. If you want a place to go and you want to meet new people, then you may be looking around a little bit more at your classmates to say, are these the kinds of folks I would want to hang out with? One of the popular ways you'll hear about when it comes to selective attention is something called Myers-Briggs. So some of you may have actually even taken this Myers-Briggs assessment. You can actually find sort of shortened versions of this online. They're not the real assessment, but there's a series of questions that you can at least find if you're interested. There are locations throughout town that will actually deliver this particular assessment for a fee. But Myers-Briggs looks at 4 aspects of who we are. It looks at how you obtain your energy, how do you perceive information, how do you make decisions, and how do you organize your world. By energy, we mean that whole idea of extroversion and introversion. So if you're an extrovert, you gather your you gather your energy from other people, like me. And if you're an introvert, you obtain your energy being solo. So that second item, which is how do you perceive information, is some of us do this intuitively. That doesn't mean like by metaphysically perceiving something, but it's intuitive, and that's the N, the letter N. And this is looking at something theoretically, looking at something that could be, extrapolating the information and then applying that to the situation and saying, if we do this, this might happen. The S, which is sensing, means using the facts and information you have at hand, or even just using your senses to perceive the information, to gather that information. Some of us make decisions for like a group as a whole, for like the common good of something, so that it maybe equitably applies to everybody. That's the T, and that means thinking. The F is feeling. This doesn't mean that you're more emotional with the F, or that you think more logically as the T, but the F is when you're making a decision, you are more likely to consider the emotional reaction. You know, how will this affect the other people or affect a person in a group or in a family, for example? So that last item, that fourth item, is how do you organize your world? All right, planners, where are you at? So you're the J, you're the judgers. Doesn't mean judgmental, it's just judging. So the J will more likely have a plan, make that to-do list. The P is perceiving. You're more likely to, as we'll say, go with the flow. You're open to the possibilities. If you travel somewhere and you're a J, you may be the kind of person that says, yeah, I need to know where I'm going to stay for that night, or it's just going to upset me. The P may be like, it's 8 p.m., but do I really need to know right now where I'm going to be staying tonight? So E and I, N and S, T and F, J and P. So, and again, if this interests you, you can find more information on the internet, or you can ask me. So selection, organization. So when we select that information, we then organize it. And this is the idea of making sense of it, that information, by sorting it into groups and models. We are humans, and we have to construct something that for us makes sense. Chaos does not suit humans well. We just don't do this as humans. We have to put things into order. Some of us more than others, but we do this as humans, right, into groups. So one thing when we organize is we put things into prototypes, into situations, into groups, into models that match other things we've seen in the past. So when you think of Professor Philippowitz, Instructor Philippowitz, there's a whole bunch of mediated images of instructors, right? So here's one from the 1970s from a TV show called Welcome Back, Kotter. There was a movie called Prima Miss Jean Brodie. There's an image of another instructor. The Sir with Love had a huge song that was a hit when that particular film came out. So another instructor. Miss Dice from Clueless. Snape, right, from Harry Potter, another instructor. If you ever watched the mid to late 70s, early into the early 80s TV show, A Little House on the Prairie, there was Miss Beadle, who was the teacher in that one-room schoolhouse. Every real college instructor's dream is to be the kind of instructor from Dead Poets Society, inspiring a group of students. So there's another model of an instructor. Miss Frizzle, the Frizz, driving the magic school bus, another instructor. Harrison Ford's character, Indiana Jones, another college instructor prototype for us. So, and because we put all of these things into models and what are called archetypes, this is how we'll organize things too. Like maybe you even have a group in a family, or you have a group of friends, and you've matched certain people that somebody is the mother of the group. Somebody is like the wise old man of the group. Somebody's the joker of the group. That's the trickster. So Carl Jung actually came up with these archetypes and how we actually put together people into groups. So selective, right? Selection, organization, and then the third thing that we do as humans when we process information is we interpret that. Now, how we interpret that goes back to how we already see the world, who we are as individuals, what our identities tell us about what the world is like. So we assign this meaning to information. So there's two different ways. There's multiple ways we interpret, and there's multiple things we draw from to interpret. These are just two. One is frames or framing, and one is something called attribution theory. So frames is sometimes we go into a situation or we are in a situation and we're interpreting that information and we will frame it as good or bad. So, maybe I'll tell you, all right, everybody, I've made a change to the syllabus and it involves some assignments. Your first thought may be, oh, great, I hope they eliminated some assignments. So you're framing it as good, or you're framing it as bad. It's like, oh, great, now we're going to have more. I know all classes are like this. That instructor is just going to screw us over. So framing, we're going to see things or expect things as good or bad. Attribution. So one of the phrases that's also helpful in this is something called internal locus of control and external locus of control. This is the idea that we will attribute something to internal or external factors. So if you have an internal locus of control, you will perceive things more from you internally, like you did something, you think something. When you look at it, if you have an external locus of control, then it's somebody else doing it, perhaps to you. So here's an example. There's an exam in a class. You take the exam, you earn a C. Your internal locus of control, if it's stronger, may say, oh, I should have studied harder. Curses, what did I miss? What did I not do? External locus of control would say, this test was stupid. This instructor is just trying to mess with me. This test was unfair. So external or internal locus of control. So interpretation is attribution theory. So we looked at 3 processes we go through in our heads when we are perceiving things. We select the information based on who we are. We interpret that information based on who we are. And then we interpret that. Is that right? Select, organize, and then interpret the information based on who we are. So 4 quick skills that you can use to increase your perception skills, to make this work for you, not against you, especially when you look at who you are as a person and you think, yeah, I really need to, I know that this is how I perceive the world with an external locus of control, so maybe I need to work on that. Or if you have an internal locus of control and you're finding that it's self-esteem, then you know that you need to adjust accordingly and maybe say, okay, maybe this isn't about me. Maybe this really is something external. So 4 things you can do to work on those perception skills when you know more about yourself. So the idea of practicing mindfulness is that idea of being present in that particular space. So rather than leap back to 2 weeks prior, or pull from a conversation you had the day before. So this must be happening because of XYZ. Put yourself right into that particular place. What is that person saying right now? Even if you have had experiences prior with a person, for example, and you know that that person is passive aggressive, or they are sarcastic, don't just always go back to that and make that assumption. Sure, you can be aware of it, but put yourself in that particular space, in that particular communication situation, and practice mindfulness. Other thing is separate the facts from the inferences. Just because you perceive that a certain way doesn't mean that that's the case. So what actual facts do you have for that very moment? Don't just make assumptions. Empathy is that ability to not put yourself into somebody's shoes, but understand their emotion. We are humans. We all understand fear. We all understand joy. We all understand anger and many other emotions, right? So empathy is that ability to understand other people's emotions, that you know what that feels like. Doesn't mean that you totally get their situation, because maybe you've never been in it. But, you know, sometimes when you're talking to a supervisor, this can work really well, because if you think maybe this person is concerned about, you know, something with their supervisor. So, and perception check is stopping and thinking, is this legit? Or is it just me and my identity? I swear if people used more of this stuff, we'd have a much calmer world. So sometimes perception check, you can ask other people, but you have to make sure that you don't just go into an echo chamber just to get the response that you want. So you want to ask people who you think are going to be totally objective. Am I right in perceiving this, or is it just me? I use that one all the time, all the time. I probably just used it 2 days ago, asking somebody if they perceived the situation the same as I did. So what other perception skills have you used? What other things have you used in order to make sure that you don't just draw on your own, this is what I think happened because, you know, I know, but using your perception skills to keep you out of any type of trouble. All right, we covered a lot here, folks. We've entered the world of perception and how it relates to identity. So, you know, we defined perception, and we also talked about those 3 things we use in perception, right? Selection, organization, interpretation. And then we talked about ways to kind of check our own perceptions when the situation calls for it. Thank you very much.